who is in the mathematics department at Vanderbilt University, and the topic is the story of the Black Panther Party. And Dr. Farley, before we had our first commercial break, you were giving us sort of a summary, an overview of the story of the Black Panther Party. And let's continue that by allowing you during this second segment to talk about the significance of that party. Why was that party important? And let's do it perhaps to talk about the social significance. I think you've already alluded to some of the things that the party was involved in, but in a more organized fashion. As a mathematician, let's have you to talk about the social significance of that organization, and then perhaps say something about the political significance of it.
Well, as you pointed out before, there was a connection between the Black Panther Party and the Civil Rights Movement. In fact, they got their name from the Lowndes County Freedom Democratic Party in Lowndes County, Alabama. Their symbol was the Black Panther. And in fact, in the summer of 1966, there were as many as 5 different groups across the country which were disconnected, which called themselves the Black Panther Party. But the party we're talking about was founded in October 1966 in Oakland, and Bobby Seale and Huey Newton chose the symbol because, and this addresses one of the myths surrounding the party, that the party was like a panther in that it wouldn't attack, it wasn't aggressive. So people have this idea that the Black Panthers were somehow aggressive and violent when they weren't. But if it was backed into a corner, then it would defend itself. And so the initial name of the party was the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. But socially, the Black Panthers realized that the problem wasn't simply curbing police brutality, monitoring the police to make sure that they didn't violate the civil rights of anyone, like we saw in 1992, or rather before that with Rodney King. But what they saw was that there was a holistic problem that black people faced, not just in this country, but worldwide. And not just black people either, but also brown people, yellow people. The war in Vietnam was raging. We had the Algerian War, which finished in 1962. And they saw a connection between all of these struggles, and they didn't cut themselves off even from white people. They're one of the only groups, in fact, which formed coalitions with white people. And there was the Peace and Freedom Party. Eldridge Cleaver, the Minister of Information, who was viewed as some sort of demon because of negative propaganda, actually formed active coalitions, and he was the 1968 presidential candidate for the mostly white Peace and Freedom Party. So socially, what the Black Panthers saw was we wanted, and you were talking about the black community, land, bread, housing, clothing, justice, and peace. And they implemented social programs in order to achieve those goals. For example, I mentioned the Free Breakfast for Children program. They saw that black children were going to school hungry, and so obviously they couldn't learn. So what did the Panthers do? They set up Free Breakfast for Children programs. Also, they set up free schools so that black children could learn about their own history and significance, socially, politically, and otherwise, in American society and in the whole world. What they also did was set up free health clinics. They saw most people were too poor to afford adequate health care. Even today, over 40 million Americans do not have health insurance. They set up free health clinics. In fact, many of the social programs that the Black Panthers implemented were taken over by the government, even though certain forces in the government, in particular J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, were trying to broadcast negative propaganda, untruths about what the party really was and what it's all about, which we need to correct today.
And so in a real sense, the Panther Party was almost the forerunner for what would eventually become known as the Great Society, because I think the Great Society sort of represented a large number of federal programs dealing Head Start and dealing with literacy and et cetera, as a response to that. And you're saying that the party, the Panther Party, was involved in that before it became a sort of a national thing to do?
Exactly. Now, there was no direct official connection.
I understand.
But the programs that the Panthers implemented, ironically, the government took on. And that's why we need to correct the historical record, so people know that these positive social programs that the Black Panthers implemented, as scary as their image in the media is, these were quite safe programs. And interestingly enough, J. Edgar Hoover realized that too. A lot of people think, well, the government was against the Black Panthers because of their guns, because of their rhetoric. But in reality, there's a secret FBI memo, which is declassified, where J. Edgar Hoover says that the Black Panthers were the single greatest threat to the internal security of the country, not because of their guns, which they carried only for self-defense, but because of their Free Breakfast for Children program. He saw it as a way of propagandizing the black youth. So that's quite interesting.
And I think what many people ought to recognize now, that when you talk about some of these social programs that many of us take for granted some 30 or 40 years later, that these were in a real sense revolutionary programs. The Head Start program, the food program, feeding children, et cetera. These were, in a real sense, programs that the government had not become involved in, and the state, in a real sense, had not really taken its own responsibility in doing what it could, and so they were revolutionary programs at the time.
Precisely. And what the Black Panthers also did is they enlightened the American public in general about many problems faced by black people and the system. For example, the whole problem of poverty. They took poor people, they gave them free groceries. If you had relatives who were in jail for whatever reason, they would provide transportation if you couldn't make it to wherever the prison was. They improved the conditions in prisons. Before the Black Panther Party, you could be put into prison in this place called the Hole, which is like 5 feet by 5 feet with a hole in the ground, no light. The hole was it was the toilet. After that, that was declared unconstitutional and basically eliminated. So they advanced the rights of all Americans, and there were citizens throughout the world. They were viewed on par with the leaders of other countries, not in America, but in other countries. Huey Newton, the co-founder of the party, was meeting with the premier of China, Zhou Enlai, and was meeting with some of the leaders of Algeria, and was really regarded on that level. So internationally, the Black Panther Party gained respect. And I knew students at Oxford who studied the Black Panther Party in high school, but probably in America, that doesn't happen in any school, and that's what we need to correct. Something like in the Bible, it says how a prophet is not honored in his own country.
Very good. You know, in a real sense, when we talk about the politics that the party was involved in, did it have any real political impact on the whole process? And of course, that's a question that we've given you 1 minute to answer. Because we have a minute commercial break, but let me interrupt you during that time, but let's talk about the politics of it.
Oh, definitely they had a significant political impact, because what they did was they focused the attention of the government not on little piecemeal solutions which wouldn't work, but on the fundamental problems that black people were articulating. Because the Black Panthers, they weren't radical by definition because they articulated the needs and the desires of the people. That's what they were all about. What black people wanted, they found out and tried to surface their needs. And the government, seeing this, then stopped some of its negative policies and tried to address some of those needs, as we've already indicated with their social programs.
And so they had a real political impact, even though they remain a very, very small number in terms of just numbers, and the base was not that wide, but they, in a real sense, articulated some of the things that nobody else articulated at the time in a real sense, and those that were doing so were not doing it as forceful as the party. And of course, Dr. Farley, let us take this second commercial break, and we'll be back with you following this short commercial break. Dr. Jonathan